She made six figures. Nice apartment, new car, vacations twice a year, a closet full of the right brands, an Instagram feed that looked genuinely like a life that had figured itself out. Then she lost her job for 11 weeks, not fired, laid off, the polite version. The version with a severance email and a LinkedIn post about exciting new chapters. 11 weeks of no income while she interviewed, followed up, and quietly watched her carefully constructed monthly budget start to crack at every seam simultaneously. Week 3, the credit card balance moved. Week 6, the emergency fund, which was never really an emergency fund, more of a slightly padded checking account, was gone. Week 9, she was doing math she had never had to do before. Rent versus car payment, minimum payments versus groceries. Which bill could absorb one more month of waiting? She wasn't broke. She was leveraged. Completely, invisibly, catastrophically leveraged, and she had no idea, because from the outside and from the inside, everything had looked fine. In 2026, her story is not a cautionary tale. It is the American median dressed in better clothes. Here is the number that should stop you cold. Nearly 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck as of 2026, not 60% of low-income Americans. 60% across income brackets, including households earning over $100,000 a year. 1 in 4 Americans earning six figures reports that they could not cover 3 months of expenses without borrowing money. Sit with that for a moment. 6 figures, paycheck to paycheck. The wealth that Americans believe they have and the wealth they can actually access when something goes wrong are two entirely different numbers. And the gap between them, invisible in good times, catastrophic in bad ones, is the wealth illusion. It is built from 3 specific materials, and most people are living inside all 3 simultaneously without recognizing any of them. The first is paper wealth, assets that feel real until you need them to be liquid. Home equity is the most common example. The average American homeowner has seen their equity grow substantially over the past decade as home values climbed. That equity shows up in net worth calculations. It produces a genuine feeling of financial progress. People look at their Zillow estimate and feel wealthy. But equity is not money. It is a number attached to an illiquid asset that requires refinancing, a loan, or a sale to convert into anything you can actually spend. In a crisis, which is by definition a situation requiring fast access to real resources, equity is largely theoretical. The same logic applies to retirement accounts. The balance is real. The access is not. Early withdrawal before 59.5 triggers a 10% penalty plus income taxes, meaning you might lose 30% of whatever you pull out before it reaches your bank account. The money exists. It is simply behind a wall that becomes very expensive to climb in an emergency. Americans are sitting on trillions of dollars in locked, illiquid, penalty-protected wealth and mistaking the feeling of that wealth for actual financial security. The second material is high income without margin. This is the one that surprises people most, because the instinct is to assume that earning more solves the problem. It doesn't, not automatically, and not in the current cost environment. Housing costs in major American metros have risen faster than incomes for 15 consecutive years. Healthcare premiums for employer-sponsored plans consumed an average of 7% more of worker compensation entering 2026 than the year before. Childcare in many cities costs more annually than in state college tuition. Student loan payments, resumed after the pandemic pause, immediately became the second or third largest monthly expense for millions of borrowers. The result is that high earners are running financial structures with almost no slack. Every dollar has an assignment before it arrives. The mortgage, the car payments, plural, because 2-car households are the American default. The insurance stack, the subscriptions that add up to more than anyone can name off the top of their head. The private school tuition, or the after-school programs, or the summer camps that somehow became non-negotiable. There is no line in any of those budgets labeled financial resilience. So when the unexpected expense arrives, the medical bill, the roof, the job disruption, the transmission, there is nowhere for it to go except onto a credit card, into a retirement account, or onto the pile of things that get deferred until they become a crisis of their own. The third material is the most psychologically interesting one and the hardest to see from inside it. Consumption has replaced savings as the primary signal Americans use to assess their own financial health. If the car is new, the apartment is nice, the vacations are happening, and the restaurants are good, the brain registers stability. These markers have always, in the cultural imagination, corresponded with being okay, with having arrived somewhere. But in 2026, every one of those markers can be entirely financed. The new car is a 7-year loan at a rate that would have been considered predatory 20 years ago. The apartment is affordable only if nothing changes. The vacation went on a card carrying a balance that gets minimum minimum payment managed into permanent existence. The restaurants are possible because the emergency fund was never built. The consumption is real. The security it implies is not. And because social media has made consumption intensely, continuously visible while keeping balance sheets entirely private, the benchmarks everyone uses to evaluate whether they are doing well are systematically misleading. You look at your life. It resembles the lives of people you assume are financially stable. The conclusion writes itself. The logic is coherent. The foundation is not. Here is the system-level risk that rarely enters the conversation. American GDP is approximately 70% consumer spending. That spending is being sustained in significant part by households operating without reserves, households that are one disruption away from sharp, sudden spending contractions. The economy looks stable in the aggregate, but stability built on the financial fragility of its participants is not stability. It is a surface tension that holds until it doesn't. When the next disruption arrives, and disruptions always arrive, the distance between feeling wealthy and being financially secure will compress into a very short, very expensive lesson. Wealth in America has increasingly become an aesthetic, a set of signals, a performance of financial arrival that looks convincing from the outside and feels convincing from the inside, right up until the moment something real happens and the structure underneath becomes visible. The woman at the start of this story wasn't reckless. She was living inside a system that sold her financial comfort as a feeling and never mentioned that feelings don't cover rent in week 9 of a job search. So the question worth sitting with, quietly, honestly, without the Instagram filter, is whether your own financial life is built on the foundation or the feeling. Because in 2026, the gap between those two things has never been wider, and for most people, it has never been less visible. If this landed differently than you expected, share it with someone whose financial life looks fine from the outside. And if you want to understand the full architecture of what is quietly reshaping American financial life right now, the next video is already waiting for you.